this is a fantastic success story. When you took over, you told me you were 120 people, now you are plus 400 people. So in every dynamic, you are exporting, globally also to different countries.
Interesting, when he set it up, I was quite involved in, setting up his office. He worked from home. Before he got a premise, an office premise, initially it was from home. And
one thing that I like is that when I see people who have been with us for a long time, there are moments when they say, oh, this happened when I joined in 1984, this was how it was, and it's okay.
Welcome to my YouTube channel, The Missing Link with Amit. The tagline, as you know, this is where executives can find their competitive edge. We are doing the season 2 now, and we have come to a very interesting part with the episode 5. And before that, you might have seen our episode on legacy leadership and what best to follow up on but family business. So I have 2 wonderful guests today with me, Aruna and Charu. Aruna and Charu, welcome to my show. Thank you very much for finding time to come and share your experiences and maybe also dreams going forward. So Aruna and Charu run their company called Measure Controls from Bangalore, India. The company was started by their father, Mr. Janardhanan, in 1984. And very interestingly, that was the year, Aruna, you were born, right? Okay. And Charu, I think you were not even a teenager. Yeah. And so we will get into that. So Aruna and Charu, as you know, my show is more about, executives finding their competitive edge. And by executives, I mean managers, individuals, leaders, irrespective of titles and all that. So I will not even get into the title part of it. What I'm very curious about is, your father started it 40 years back, as I know now. And how did you both come into running this business? Shortly, if you could just speak about it.
I joined the business in 2011.
Okay.
But growing up, I think I always saw my father, he was just setting up the business when I was my formative years. So my memories of him are very rare, and whatever little memories I have are of him either, packing to go to some customer visit for his customer meets and things like that. So working late at home doing his design and things like that. So I think in my mind it was sort of like it has always been that okay, this is something that dad has done, and it was an interesting thing because I saw how dynamic it was and all of that. So I don't remember a definitive moment when I decided I should join the business. I think it was very organic. I did my chartered accountancy. I didn't complete it. I finished my internship with one of the big fours. And then I, decided that audit was too monotonous for me. I thought maybe something more dynamic, like what my dad had, because I thought that was a good career to pursue.
Wonderful. I mean, you were really so young. You were just growing up along with the company from a baby stage, not even toddler.
I look at the company as my twin, my sibling.
How did it go for you exactly?
okay, so I joined Aruna in the business just about a couple of years ago.
Okay. Yeah.
So I've actually an architect by profession, and I was in Malaysia, settled in Malaysia and worked there for many years. And of course, I have seen the business from the beginning. I've seen my father, I was about 9 years old when So it was very interesting when he set it up. I was quite involved in, setting up his office. He worked from home. Before he got a premise, an office premise, initially it was from home and, doing everything. And so I remember a fair bit, even doing the drawing. I remember him buying this real fancy drawing board. Those days it was all like hand, drafting was all. Yeah. So that was my earliest memory, going with him and buying that. I think it was it was a very nice drawing board. So I remember that. So I used to help him with a lot of little things. And then
like what? As a 9-10-year-old?
Yeah. He asked me to set up the office, so I went with my mother to buy the stationery and set up his table and those little it started as a very small family. My mother was doing the accounts for a long time, and for the first few years, and It's, then few people joined in. It was a very small company, and then he set up something in another premise. And
Dad was the first one to have a mobile phone.
yeah, that was a
happening,
big
so
thing.
it was a big thing.
No, but that
He
was much later also.
But that was
But
when
yeah.
my phone, like I was, what, 10, 12
Yeah,
years when
right,
that happened.
yeah.
And
True.
he was the first one to fly to any place. Like, so he used to take flights to Delhi. That
Yeah, and
happened,
then
like,
at that time, it was
Which was-
quite rare to really like take flights. I have seen the really hard working days off. I mean, it took time to really establish, and he and his partners from in Chennai. So I remember they really, their travels a lot. They used to travel a lot to the north of India because a lot of the transformer manufacturers were all in the north of India.
Right.
Very few in south, actually, mostly north at that time. And I remember they used to, train even sometimes they wouldn't even get a confirmed ticket. They would have to, just
Go second class
go and-
unreserved.
yeah.
Yes, I remember that.
It's been a tough journey.
I have one question on that. See, when it was tough times, I mean, of course, I'm sure the viewers also can absolutely empathize with this, that when you start a company, it's always tough. You start from scratch, zero, right? Okay, so, and you don't start obviously with, endless capital as probably sometimes some of the startups today start with a lot of venture capitalists. Those were not the days when you got all that. But just one question. Your father, your mother helping in accounting, etc., and the partner, did you ever hear about something without the label even of a burnout? Did you see them going through a burnout?
no.
They enjoyed their work. We refer to our father as VJ, short form, and his partner, his full name is SR Krishnamurthy, but he's called SRK. So they both, VJ and SRK, so they really complemented each other because SRK, he's a very people's person, and he's very organized, very very gung-ho kind of person.
Very disciplined.
Very disciplined, yeah.
He was a commercial person.
Yeah.
My dad was the technical.
Technical
guy.
person, yeah.
So they
You're an
really
electrical engineer himself.
Yeah.
your father.
My
Yeah.
father was, So they really complemented each other, and this was one of my questions to them when I joined 2011.
Yeah.
I was 28, 29 something. When I joined the first few years, of course, you're like, it's a new thing, I'm learning, I'm working. And then after a couple of years, I already had started to feel the burnout. So I asked him, I'm just not able to do this. So the one thing Dad told me was, when you come home, don't talk about work, leave it. Just finish, or step out of the factory, step out of your whatever, then that's it. Don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Everything can wait till the next day. It's fine. 8 hours is not going to.
I think that is something viewers should take home. Even today, I think it's very applicable.
Especially like business owners, that extra burden is on your head because you are first of all, you are responsible for, for so many people's.
It's impossible for you to stop thinking about it. It's always going to be there.
Yeah.
When you're an employee, I think it's much more easy to draw the line. As an employer,
Absolutely.
it's much more. And if you're a first gen, if you're a founder, if you're starting your own company, you've got your own set of challenges. And if you're a second gen, it's a totally different set of challenges. One is not lesser than the other, but I don't think it's possible to cut off that way. But at least, you can't stop thinking about it, but you don't have to work on it. You don't have to sit down and, that helps.
Let me pick on that line that you just now mentioned about as an owner of a company or employer. Yes, of course, there is a clear line between an employer and an employee. Employees have to, for sure, also take up very important responsibilities, but they are different responsibilities. And it's not, at least in my experience, it is not normal and natural. We are from Bangalore, and I spent a lot of time staying close to one of the oldest industrial areas called Pune. I believe that's where also your father started. So I've seen a lot of companies which were started by people like your father in those days, but their next gen really did not go into the business. The point that I found very significant is when you said about this always being on the mind that we have to take care of not just the cash flows of the business, which includes the cash flows which have to go to the employees, but what I kind of sensed or heard is that you feel that bigger than responsibility, maybe the word in our language is something like daitva or kartavya. Okay. How did that get passed on from your father to you, Aruna, when you came and later? Yeah.
Just about the employees, right? The whole ecosystem. We had vendors that were very small time
Yeah.
guys who operated out of their homes, the garages and things like that. So I think because Prissy Mesher also started in that similar line, a business from home, then moved on to a smaller premise, some house, somebody's garage, I think.
Yeah.
And then we had to buy another, rent premises. And I think because we started from there, we sort of, we know how difficult it is
Yeah.
to be a small-time entrepreneur trying to really, make a difference.
I would request you to break the plural of we into yourselves as individuals and your dad. Because how did this, if I may use the word, I don't know, values or, some may say principles, or I would even say leadership, the thinking which transferred from VJ and SRK to you ladies, how did this transfer happen?
So I think Dad always spoke to us, even before I joined the business, even now. Both he and SRK, they always spoke to us about all the tough times, all the the challenges that they faced, how they came out of it. Not in the sense that to tell us what to do, but just as a storytelling, anecdotes. This happened when we used to travel, this, and then we met this guy and this. It was just a storytelling thing, which I think because there was no hidden agenda behind the storytelling, we sort of landed up learning more out of it.
First of all, economically, also, we come from very hard times. So nobody has had that, neither VJ or they've not come from very established, everything is handed over and okay, so now go and establish a business. That didn't happen. Life was tough. We've grown up in the tough life. It was not a sad life. It was a very happy happening life. But we knew our limitations and we always worked around it. So we never, and by the time, Prissy Mesher was well and successful by, say, early 2000s, late 1990s. But even then, because we've already grown up in that kind of a value system, it never got to our head.
I will try to dig a little bit more on that. The point is this, that, see, you mentioned they came from the simple life. Does simple life automatically bring in this value system? Can we generalize on that statement?
Don't know.
Maybe not, I'm not sure about
I think if I get your question right, I think there's also this curiosity that I had. So even if they didn't initiate telling me something, I would always ask them. So anything so initially during my initial days in the business, I would always ask, did you do this? Did you face similar situations? What did you do? What happened with this, this customer, say? I was always curious, and not just with the business, even with family, I was all a bit nosy, but, just to know what happened. But I would always, and then, so he would tell me about, stories about other family members who also had businesses which didn't go well, which went well, which went really well and then tanked. So all of this, so I think it's the curiosity on the second generation's part that makes a difference.
So we picked on all these nuances, like why, why did somebody rose up and then why did that business decline? There must be some reason. So we always talk okay, fine, what was it?
A thought that comes to my mind is that I've worked a long part of my life with Europeans, primarily Germans. And I heard sometimes my German friends or colleagues when they visited India talking about India being a hierarchical society. And it was not the first time I heard. But my belief has been, even after 30 years have passed by with my exposure and experiences, your story, what you are saying, if it was a hierarchical society, would you have felt kind of free enough to ask this question, to be nosy?
Both my mom and dad, although they were very traditional, they sort of did not set that, that hard line. I'm father, you cannot ask me this. So me more than her. I think she is still a little bit more.
Wish she was older.
Yeah, she's sort of a bit more reverent to dad. I'm much more
Pally.
to him. So
I can understand.
Yeah,
The relationship, they are more like friends.
Yeah.
I am more like, father,
I think
daughter.
that happens. I mean, our younger one is a daughter, and she can practically blast me. But
yeah, so I think that's also the second child syndrome, because we don't have any inhibitions and like things like that. But then the advantage that I had with my father and even with SRK, because they never, when I asked impertinent questions, they never said you shouldn't ask, that was never there. They always answered, they always gave me context. So I think that really I really admire that about SRK more, because you can ask your father anything. He's your father. You can, whatever. But somebody else who's senior, who's experienced, when you ask impertinent questions, tendency is to, shut them off, right? Like a young girl asking. But then he never did.
So that's Aruna, exactly. That's where I'm trying to get into. My first question that I wanted you to get into is that you are a success story about also not just a family business, but also about succession planning having been executed. I mean, since 2011 that you took over the company has already doubled in the next 6-7 years. And after that, since 2019, you have again grown more than 60% till now. So this is a fantastic success story. When you took over, you told me you were 120 people, now you are plus 400 people. So in every dynamic, you are exporting, globally also to different countries. But the point is this, that it is easier to study and do a case study like business academics do about succession planning and what went wrong or what went right. But the point is, what is it that the person who actually went around and had the succession planning getting implemented, which is your father and SRK, I'm trying to dig into what made them do it.
I don't think they had any specific plan.
Okay.
I think that's what worked. They just...
It fell into place.
It just fell into place. The thing is this, right? For succession planning to work, the first gen needs to be receptive enough for the second gen to come in. If they are sort of territorial about their... Because it is their baby, whatever said and done. It's something they've put their, sweat and blood into to develop and everything. So they are going to be a bit, territorial about it. But if it goes to the point where they don't allow the next gen to do anything, then the second gen is not going to take that interest in.
So let me ask you a leading question. Was Vijay or SRK, were they perfectionists in their working?
SRK was, is. Vijay
is perfection in the technical terms, like when he's doing something, when he wants to when he's designing something or working on an instrument, he just has to get it right. In that way, he's a perfectionist. But generally, as a person by nature, he's a very laid back, easy go person.
Yes, I mean, I can be a perfectionist, and then I can go two ways. One is that I can expect out of my colleague or my junior or my successor to be as perfectionist as I have been, or I don't put this weight of expectations, rather, do other ways to also. So from that point of view, was SRK again and Vijay both perfectionists?
He was a perfectionist. He expected certain things to be a certain way. But he was also good enough to see that, okay, this may not necessarily be the only way of doing it. So when I started to do things differently, he saw the benefit in it and allowed me to, make the necessary changes.
Exactly. Because a lot of people are, we are different people because we are, in my lingo I use the word, we are wired differently, right? Okay. And some people, at least who are perfectionists, are wired where they expect the same perfectionism, which also means that they find it very difficult to go out of their own, habit funnel. Okay? And some people, like the example of SRK or Vijay you mentioned, they are clear about, see, it is one thing to have expectations from the overall work as a company, as an organization, etc. But another thing to expect the other person to do it exactly the same way I have done and I have succeeded. So just because I succeeded by doing it, okay, I expect you also to do it. That was not the case, right? Okay. And because if that were the case, then you would have felt maybe the smiles would have been bigger or smaller, you feel?
It was definitely small. I think I would have lost the, the interest or the drive to do. I think so. It goes both way. Like I said, I understand that the first generation are territorial, but they have to be, receptive enough for the second. But on the other hand, the second generation also need to show that same level of curiosity and interest in doing, making sure that, the legacy is not tarnished in any way.
Yeah, but I mean, if I look at this topic from the point of view that I'm a father, I've been a senior manager in the industry. So if I want that the second generation of whether it is family or executives or employees to have their curiosity, okay, that's one dimension of it. On the other hand, if I am the second generation, as you are speaking, you take the onus on you to be curious. That's acting like a leader, acting as an individual. One last question on this point. Maybe it's a little bit repetition. Primarily, your father, what did he do in his behavior? You talked about storytelling. What else you can point out, one or two things which kept you, alive with that curiosity as you both went on the journey of growing up?
He was never a good storyteller, so he always left some bits out, which, there was always something missing, so he would never complete the story, So there was always that missing piece that.
But SRK was a storyteller.
Yeah, SRK is fantastic. Very humorous one too.
And you said both complemented each other.
They did.
Absolutely. Even as a team working on the business, they've been friends since 70.
No, earlier than that, I think 60 something.
60, their first job together. So that means, do the math. It's like. 60
Wonderful.
years, yeah.
Wonderful.
And they've really done well. No, but again, see, it's not a bed of roses for them. They always have their differences, but they know how to, one will step back if, when...
Bit like how you both work together is...
Yeah, we are also very different in the ways, but I think I really feel we complement each other. I joined Prezi Measure just a couple of years ago, like I was saying earlier, but coming back to how, it took me this long to join, but that's because I was on my own journey. I was, but as the, many years now since she joined and, we've always had that conversation at some point of time that I would come in. So it was always, always that intention, but it was always about the timing, how to do it, because, my children were, in university and the industry is doing so well and the company is doing it. There's so much of potential and, so I decided, okay, now is the right time and
Wonderful.
So on that note, let me take you to another question that I have. Does family control help growth? I mean, see, it's not a company which you have gone, for example, public yet. Maybe one day you will, or you may for other reasons. What comes to my mind is probably capital or financial or whatever it is. But you've already grown stupendously, for example. But my question is, does family control? Because as of now, the company is, I'm not using the word control from a derogatory or negative point of view. The company is controlled by the family ownership, okay? Does it help growth or does it hinder growth?
And
very
if so-
subjective, I think.
Yeah, so
Very subjective.
How does it help growth?
Because there's so much of vested interest, I think we
Committed.
expect that
Yeah.
there is more commitment,
Okay.
which is true, which is largely true. And also there is you bring in the ethics of the company, the ethos and everything, as whatever you have
Values.
learned, the values, everything you bring into the company. So that, I think that makes a lot of difference. Because then people around you, be it your colleagues or, supply, whatever ecosystem
they
that
see
you're
the
in,
consistency also.
they see the consistency. So that I think helps. It can hinder growth. I've seen companies that where
Yes.
and again, like I said, when there is too much control,
Yeah,
when you are not looking at distance the family and the business. It may be family held, but you've got to separate the two, because when you start looking at the business as something for the family, by the family, then
That's not good.
that's not good, because
Right.
you're limiting yourself.
And also how you run the business, right? You got to be extremely professional in the way you run the business. So if it gets too intermingled with family ownership part, then you got to be very professional in how you run. So that is a fine line.
So, one simple, straight question. What created growth? And just to give you a context to my question is, see, if you look at it, there are certain things which I would say are the explicit issues, which is like tools, technology, processes, systems, technical knowledge, domain knowledge, okay, including skills, right? So what from that helped in creating growth? As opposed to that, there is something which is tacit knowledge, and that's about, for example, the leadership style, communication, articulation, which probably creates commitment and longevity. So, the explicit side created growth, or tacit side, or both, and if so?
I think it's a combination of two always. I don't think one can outbeat the other. In terms of the internal intrinsic factors, I think systems play a lot of importance in growth. You cannot depend, people are very important. Nothing happens without people, but systems are equally, if not more,
They're the
important.
guardrails.
They are the guardrails, and you need to have, and systems cannot be, so the mistake most people do in building system is they make it people centric. It has to be the other way around. People have to follow the system, not the system following the people, So I think that is a very, very important aspect. When I joined, until I joined, the company was being still run with VJ and SRK as the the key people, and everything would revolve around them and their availability and their decision. So it was never, whatever questions, it had to come from the horse's mouth.
Delegations were less, right?
Delegations were less.
Yeah.
There was no system in the sense that departments taking their responsibility for their work, things like that wasn't there. It was all dependent on either VJ or SRK. It was a very small business mindset sort of a thing. So that was a challenge that I had to take on the minute I came in, was to set up these
Functional organization.
Yeah, so I had to scale it up, because I saw that if we had to grow, we couldn't be doing everything depending on my yes or no. That can't be the way.
That should be, I think, very important for the viewers, because to scale up, okay, we hear a lot nowadays about startup. I mean, all businesses were startups anyway, right? When your father started, it was a startup. So we have all these American-style labels nowadays for everything, ICs, and all that. So what is important is, viewers, that to grow a business, okay, other than the consistency and continuity of values and ethics, which comes from also succession planning and implementation, the other part is that one needs systems as guardrails, because without systems you cannot become a functional organization. Otherwise it rotates and revolves around the founder or the main person who is running the company. So that's very important. So again, coming back to what created growth, I mean, systems you needed even to sustain the growth, but I'm trying to dig into what were those little things or triggers that came in which created the growth. Because since you took over from 2011, you have grown from 22 crores to double of that size within 7 years approximately. So it can't be just bringing the systems but systems you needed to manage the growth. But what created the growth?
So specifically to the question of growth, when I came in, I had to set up the marketing team, remove it from it being a one-person marketing team who would talk to the customers, get orders, answer and send it. From that, I had to change it to a team where each individual handled their own set of customers. And they would in turn report to a head and they would report to me. So I had to establish that, so that these guys were responsible for these set of customers, and whatever happened to those set of customers, it was him that would answer. That's what I mean by system, and that is very important. If you start to say no, all customer, I check every email that comes to my sales team, even today. So it's about 700, 800 emails a day. I check each and every one of them, but I am not taking action on each and every one of them. It's their responsibility to act on it. I check the emails just to know that they are doing it. If I started to micromanage and say, you answered this way for this email, you talk to this customer this way,
then you can't.
Yeah.
You can't
800
scale up.
emails, I'm not going to have the time to do it.
Yeah.
So when I say system, I think what I mean is that you've got to delegate the responsibility, give them the ownership of the task, allow them to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Just be there.
So delegation of decision making and execution of those decisions.
Very important. And
Yes.
again, equally more important is when they make mistakes, everybody is bound to make mistakes. I made mistakes. You cannot point fingers at them. You know, you cannot say you made the mistake. No, you take the fault for the mistake. I mean, I take the fault for the mistake because I wasn't there. I did not step in soon enough to avoid, to make them, you know, sort of like guide them the right way.
Right. To preempt it.
Yeah, to preempt it. Yeah. So I think that is very important.
Actually speaks about, for example, your leadership style, for example, which I think, Charu, you mentioned also as the next generation, the younger generation approaches.
Yeah.
But for example, when you took over, you had already done a stint with Goldman Sachs or Deloitte somewhere. So was it that you were aware that they were running scaled up businesses or companies which were running in a, what you said, system or organized manner where decision making was not one man or one person centric? And also that, you know, the question that comes to my mind is probably, did the word growth stay with you because of your exposure and because of you being younger?
At that time, I never looked at it as growth. I never used to look at the numbers. What I was interested in was whether I'm able to deliver to the customer what he wants, when he wants it, and how he wants it. That's all. So that was the only parameter that I set.
So it was, one would say, you were very, very customer centric.
Very customer centric, and that's sort of like, because I did not have growth numbers, you know, 20%, 30%, whatever it is, that was not the it's only now recently that we're looking at numbers, because obviously, you know, once you grow to a certain level, then you've got to start looking at numbers. But initially, that was never the, so the parameters would be, what is the OTD, customer complaints ratio, what is, you know, what is the failure rate, how, you know, things like that, you know, that kappa, whether it's been root cause, things like that. So that was what I was more focused on, and never really focused on whether we're achieving.
So can I say, if I look for one word which qualifies that stage initially, and by initially I think it may be 2, 3 years, 4 years, would the word sustainability fit your state of mind, that you wanted to ensure sustainability? Or was it that customer centric itself was enough for you?
Even VJ and SRK were to a large extent customer centric.
Right.
So that was the ethos of Precimeasure, and we
are known also in the industry for that.
Right.
In all our customers, you know, they know that Precimeasure stands for quality, and you know, if there is any issue, we are always there. We are there to look into it immediately and give a solution and, you know, rectify. So it's always been that has always been their ethos.
What kind of role did technology play? I mean, in this growth phase, when you doubled within 5-6 years, what role did technology play? And knowledge also. By knowledge, I mean domain knowledge.
Oh, domain knowledge is a very important thing. If you don't know what the area that you're into, I don't think you can do much at all. Domain knowledge is very important. Developing people, bringing in the right people, giving them the resources to learn, to build their knowledge base, all that is very important. Technology, yes, this is the industry that we are in. I would say it has not been so dynamic in terms of change, unlike your electronics sector where it's totally different. It's not like that. It's pretty much remained largely static. But there has been, because we've had to bring in communication into our instruments. Now everything is about data, so whatever we manufacture should be able to give you some data out of it. So SCADA compatibility and things like that are very important. So we had to develop on that.
But operations-wise, I think technology has played a big
Yeah.
role. Like the growth. I mean, if you look at how much the company has grown, say past 10 years or 15 years, ERP system, like data collection, and we've invested a lot into, softwares for the different departments. And so compared to what it was like when the early years of the company, there was very little put towards technology for running of the business.
I think it still comes back down to systems. You got to have systems in place. There has to be an SOP for each division, each department, each role. They need to have their SOPs in place so that anybody who comes into that role should be able to pick it up and then start off without any hassles. So if you don't have those SOPs in place, that's when you have the problem of knowledge being taken away.
Yeah, and also the very important thing is second line and third line, and you always plan for, like, when you say succession planning, it's not just for the leaders, it's for every role, right? So we've got our production people. There are so many people who've been, like we said, a lot of people who've been there for a very long time. But there is a time span to how long a person can work. So we've got them mentoring 2-3 others who are following them. So we try our level best in every role, every department. There are at least 2-3 second and third line who are shadowing, and so that's always the case, and we can't stop doing that at any time and sit back and say, okay, now I have it. It's never the case.
In my language, by language I don't mean other than English, but where I'm coming from, correct me if you do not agree with it. It's about, every individual is in the business of making their life better. And now that's maybe possible in my organization for this role or that role or that role, but it may not be possible for all roles. But I can still be the so-called, guide. You use the word mentor or internal coach, to help that person grow. I mean, did you have a situation where you may have had to discuss in confidence with a certain role player that, look, you're great, fantastic, but for your growth you may have to look somewhere else, and you may have to acquire this kind of more, whatever, certifications, knowledge, etc.
We do, I mean, on a very regular, that's,
A lot of times, so almost every, of course, during the annual appraisal, the dreaded annual appraisal time, we always have these discussions with all the key people, everybody, in fact. We set the expectations right, but I think also another thing that impacts retention of knowledge is obviously when people stay back with you.
Sure, of course.
One thing that as business leaders we can do, as entrepreneurs, we can do, managers, whoever, right?
Yeah.
Don't look for outside talent. See if you can spot somebody within your organization, because there are a lot of people who are really competent, who may not have the diploma
qualifications,
certificate, or who may not know how to speak in English. They may be, but they are very technically very sound, because they have been they have the skill, they have been doing that job for the longest time. Try to see if you can pull them up and give them that additional certificates, and give them that additional age to improve their whatever skills that they seem lacking. And bring them up. Look for talent inside instead of first go to
that works well. I mean, what we've been doing now for the past couple of years more so is that we focus on, we have some targets for the year for training for every department. So, we identify what all, specifically what we can train every department on. And then, as Aruna said, bringing the existing people up. So, somebody in production at a very beginning line, we see that his capacity is more than that. We try and bump him up to the next. There are people in our organization who have been there with us for so long, who may have originally have come in the production or just in the basic in the stores, but now they are in the marketing department or purchase department because they've got that capacity. It's not just the qualification, right? It's the ability. I mean, so many people come to our mind. Like
I
we
would
have,
say my entire marketing team, they're all service guys.
yeah, who
They're
came in as
because that makes a lot of difference, because they've visited all the sites, they've visited the customers, they know their pain points. So when they talk to the customers, they know what they're talking, and they know,
So all these transitions that both of you spoke about also is growth for those individuals.
Yeah, absolutely.
And essentially, we did an episode on growth where my tagline or line is that you have to invest in complexity. And the issue is, in putting in simple terms, is that for any individual, okay, there is something which is complex. And depending on where he or she is, how many years into that particular role or skill or domain, that may be still simple task. Of course, that simple task is very important for the company, because that's where 70%, 80% of work in a company is about simple tasks. Means it's about knowns. But then, relatively, for every individual, for every role also, there is a complexity, which may be simple for somebody who is there. But now when that person moves on, the other person also can move into that role, like your service example, or somebody from stores, or the shop floor. That brings me to a question which is more personal to both of you. What drives you as leaders? One by one, maybe. Charu, you can start. What drives you? What are your drivers?
I'm a very strong believer in change.
Okay.
So
Change. Yeah.
in change, I mean, just making things better, and there's so much of potential. I mean, whatever role I have. I mean, of course, now I am with Prezi Measure for the past 2 years, but even before that, it's just exciting, because when the role is in front of you, and the whole prospect of how much you can do and how much you can contribute and improve and bring it up, I think it's just pure excitement for me. It's just that adrenaline rush.
Would you
I just
accept
love.
My statement about that you love to plunge into complexity.
I would say that I really like that. When I got in, it was, honestly, I was never involved with, I'm still learning. There's a lot to learn, because 2 years is too short. I'm still learning a lot, especially with, all our technical side and everything. But it's fun. It's so much fun. And it's just the excitement of always wanting to do something more.
Thank God, you two sisters are different to each other. Yeah. So, Aruna, what are your drivers?
Every day is different. And I like that dynamic nature of life.
You love challenges.
I love challenges. And if there's no problem today, that day is a really downer for me. I look for problems, and if there's a problem, then I'm happy, because there's a churn, and then churning waters are good waters. Still waters are not good. We all know that. So it's
if I may say boringly, it sounds the same. You are also a lover of complexity.
Yeah, I love challenges.
But you have your different ways to approach it.
And I one thing that I like is that when I see people who have been with us for a long time, and they, there are moments when they say, oh, this happened when I joined in 1984. This was how it was, and it's so great to see. And that's the
there are a
icing
lot
on the
of
cake.
anecdotes, on a day-to-day basis. We'll be talking to them. Actually, that I would like to just put in something. Today we see so much. Talking about attrition, we see so much. But attrition is, everybody needs to grow. It's a part and parcel of everybody's growth in their in their life. But what I what I see more now is very frequent, like there are people switching jobs even 3-6 months, very frequent. So my advice, like from what I would say that yes, you are looking for growth, you're looking for a change. A lot of times you may find it in your own organization, maybe in a different role, right? So if there is that opportunity to grow within your organization, come to a point and then switch on to a different, at least you've got that, because the durations where how long you stay in every company, that does make a difference in your CV.
Absolutely. See, it's not about fashion. I think, yes, see, we have done an episode in the past where, reflecting on the times that people like me, my generation, started. I used to have this fantastic boss almost for 9 years, and he's still a very good friend of mine. He's like an elder brother to me. But those days have changed because we don't bring in those stereotypes anymore of finding a father, brother, sister in the organization. Also because, of this, huge explosion of social media where everybody is kind of connected to the global habits and cultures. But what you said is very pertinent. If you can find a growth opportunity in the same organization, you also have already the credibility. You have the respect for what you have done, for example. Yes, on the other hand, you could be in a so-called, as people say, toxic environment. And then you have to exit, that's a different issue.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if not, yeah. So, thank you for the drivers' challenges and change. Change also means challenges for sure as a result. But yeah, so plunging into complexity is what really kind of beckons to people. What do you value most in your second line, in whichever function? Now you have a functional organization, so you have production, marketing, service, R&D, etc. What do you value most in your second line?
Their interest, the kind of inquisitiveness that they show to the job, that's the most vital aspect. If they don't have the inquisitiveness, then you already know that they're just doing it for the job.
It's so interesting, viewers, that you did not hear the word loyalty, you did not hear the word that, they should be compliant. So growth about business and organization and leaders, and you are all leaders also, it's not about those things anymore. It is about curiosity, as Aruna said, and you said the same thing. And it's also interesting that when we were speaking some time back, you said that when you took over, it was curiosity for you which actually made you do what you did, a lot of stuff. So, great. I'm almost done with my questions, but yet I just want to touch upon one aspect of growth for Indian companies, not only family businesses, SMEs, that, if India has to grow as a country, and we are all Indians, proud Indians, I'm sure you will agree with that, we have to also export more. We cannot simply grow as a country, if we only are selling to ourselves, for example, not to south to east, whatever it is. So, and your company went into global markets, global customers, again, really quite early. So why did that happen?
I think one of the first orders that we got was because a Western make could not deliver on time, and the cost was a factor. And we were able to give them both. But with respect to exports, the big challenges that Indian SMEs, MSMEs face is quality. And even if I think they have the quality in the technical terms, but they don't have the finesse. It's that small things that,
I love that. Please elaborate on the word finesse.
Look, at the end of the day, your product should look good. Mm-hmm. Performance is guaranteed. You cannot survive in business if you have an inferior quality, technically inferior quality product. you cannot survive. That's a given. You have to have your product must perform the way you advertise it to perform, and it must pass through all the rigorous tests and all of that. And we do that. Indian products are really good. I'm no doubts about it. But where we lag is that our products don't look as good. It's that final paint finish.
Literally,
It's just that.
Yeah.
It's just the looks, the aesthetics matter. You've got to give a product that looks that it's a superior product.
Yeah.
And it's very unfortunate that people look at that and not what it delivers, how it performs, but it matters. I think that's where most industries face the challenge, because they're not able to give that last, that final finesse.
As a society also, India as a society, we don't really look at the final. That's not our mindset. Our mindset is always about the function of the product.
Or the intention.
Intention,
Yeah.
the function, the quality of the function, not the. So that more it doesn't occur. That doesn't come as one of the prerequisites in most of the. Things are changing now because
Yes.
of the global.
Global requirements.
But if you look at the olden, like say 40 years ago. That was something that had to be really drilled into. It doesn't come naturally.
No, that's why the word that came to my mind is we grow up, taught, as well, it is imbibed in our culture that we should have good intentions.
Yeah.
That old saying, karmane vadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. So, but in industry, in business, to grow our per capita GDP, not just the GDP, we did a couple of episodes on this about the art of saying no, for example. And the point is, between a no and a yes, there's a sharp line. There's a sharp cut. And that's commitment. So what you mentioned is that, when you were speaking about the product also looking good, I'm sure it is also about whatever you send, the packaging, the documentation.
Packaging, documentation, and how your product may look fantastic. You may be giving a superior quality product, but if your factory, if your setup is not clean,
Yeah, that also.
That's it.
So
it makes a difference.
So it's about presentation.
Everything, yeah.
It's also
It's a
about
complete
presentation.
holistic
Not
thing.
just
Yeah,
fashion.
it's not just
See, after all, the buyer is not a machine, it's a human being. And the human being perceives and feels. And that's why marketing is not about just, giving the product description or the technical specifications or what it can do, not do, etc. But it's also about what does the buyer feel? Does the buyer feel confidence, including, like you said, when you first got your export order, it was not just the cost, it was also that, can they get sustainably, for example? And that sustainability belief comes when they come and visit you or see your product or any company's product. And they feel, yes, they will continue. This company is there for as long as we need, for example.
that being said, right, I believe what's happened also a little unfair to us, to India. I mean, I would say is that there's a mindset already in the West, and it may not. Many companies now may not be that way anymore. They may be extremely, they may be at par with the companies in the West, but this mindset is so hard to break in the West.
Yeah, but
It's already set in. So that is the challenge that we need to overcome.
It's like it's a reality that we have to address.
Yep. So we, yeah.
We can't sit on judgment on why somebody thinks poorly about me. I mean, it's my task as a leader or as an individual to, if I am interested in a relationship with the other person, then that I have to overcome.
It's like, okay, so we need to look at, it's not just running the business, it's about so many other things, world policies, sustainability. You want to be as green as possible, carbon neutral, all this, it's all important and it's all coming into play.
Absolutely.
The requirements are coming very soon in the industry. So it's best that you start preparing for it so it doesn't come as a big, surprise to a lot of companies. If there is an opportunity to already start looking at,
environmental sustainability, how you're operating your, right from your manufacturing process to how you're operating your facilities, to how,
Having come to where you have come, for example, obviously there is old saying that whatever got you where you are is not enough to keep you there, for sure. You have doubled, tripled the business in the last 10, 12 years. And so what is your, not dream, what do you see 2 or 3 years from now?
Well, apart from growth is always there. I also see we have widened our product offerings. We've gone into different sectors. I think we're sort of stuck in a silo in the power sector. We want to break that. We want to diversify. Yeah, customer segment.
export also we want to
Improve on that. And people. I think we're going to want to invest more in people.
on people, yeah. And I think that's guidance to the young, like what I was saying earlier. I think big industry, medium scale and big industries, I think it's our duty to actually, pay a little attention to the younger generations who are just coming out to, they just need guidance. And a lot of them have got so much of talent, but because they don't have the right guidance, they just fall into those standard jobs, which are not, which are not, may not take them far for too long, right? So one of the things I personally, this is my pet project that I want to focus on as selling is like training all the young, the fresh graduates. We should create some. It should be for the rural college, rural areas, smaller smaller colleges coming out. We should have some platform that we can train them and give them that knowledge and locally, and all that is something I really want to look into.
Thank you so much. But maybe before we close, one word just comes to my mind, also picking up from the future where you want to be. You started the sentence very interestingly by apart from growth. People do, of course, focus on the growth part, but you came down and we both spoke about the people, and we also explained about the training and bringing in people from maybe tier 2, tier 3. There's another factor that comes into my mind is that, see, we are all Indians. Now, I'm a Bengali, but never lived in Bengal, made in Delhi and hopefully refined in Bangalore. And I think by your bloodstream, you are Tamil, right? And you have made your life in Bangalore. How important for growing a business is it to have the identity of being an Indian, as opposed to our next levels? We are Bengalis, Marathis, Gujaratis, Tamils, etc. I will always be Bengali. I'm proud Bengali too. If I have to run a business, if I have to run an organization, how important is it for us to have this clarity that we are Indians?
Absolutely, very much. We have to be cohesive. I think this, putting in compartmentalizing, it doesn't work. I mean, forget the world. India itself has become so, mini globalized, right? Like we have people from different parts of the country working in different. So it's all a mix now. So we simply cannot look at it at regional base. We have to look at it as a country. And
so do you find use for a word like pride as an Indian important when you think of growing an organization, growing a business, particularly for exports?
Yeah, it makes a difference too, because we have a set of skills that I don't think many people have. I would say, I don't know what the equivalent word is, but jugaad, we're able to really, with limited resources, create innovation. Yeah.
Everybody has worked and is still working very hard to make things. And that is the admirable, actually, with all the challenges and just take, for example, our own company, how, the hurdles that the founders, and brought it up. And it's amazing. There's so many stories like this.
Thank you very much. And to also, with respect and salute to the founders, Vijay and SRK, and to repeat that, yes, they went through hardships, but they actually enjoyed it. And that's the secret for success, viewers. If you are in family business or not, you are growing your own business or you're working as an executive leader in an organization, you need to enjoy what you're doing. And it is not that if you are going through a hard way, it becomes a task when you don't enjoy. Okay, it becomes just a job. But if you enjoy what you're doing, every hardship still paves the way to growth. And that's been the theme for our this season. But just wait for the next episode when Aruna and Charu probably speak about how they make their dream successful going forward. Because business and their company is perennial and they are still very young to grow this company to the next levels in leaps and bounds. Thank you very much for coming in today. Thank you. So keep subscribing to my channel, The Missing Link with Amit, and kindly put your questions and comments. That helps us also, Vinay and me, to find interesting topics very important to you as executives to find your competitive edge. Thank you.